What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. I'm super excited for today's video. This is going to be a review and first impressions of the new Wayne Goss Luxury Cream Foundation. I also have the new Poreless Powder Puff. So if you guys are looking for a very realistic review, a demo, some application tips, and all of my completely honest thoughts, then keep watching. And if you are new here, maybe you found me in the Google or the YouTube search, then welcome. My name is Sophia. This is my channel where we talk about all things beauty and luxury. If you want to see a little bit more beauty and a little bit more luxury in your feed, then definitely hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to hear about every time I post a new video. All right, friends, let's talk about these new products from Wayne Goss. I was super excited, not only because I love pretty much everything Wayne Goss has released, but also because I love doing foundation reviews for you guys. I'm usually very detailed, very thorough. I asked you guys on Instagram if you wanted to see more of like a full 2-week test of this product or more of like a first impression. And you guys said that you wanted to see more of a first impression. So I'm gonna say right off the bat here, I have tested this product twice. And so this is definitely kind of like a first impressions, but I'm gonna make it as detailed and as helpful as possible. If you guys are not familiar with Wayne Goss, he is a lovely, very talented makeup artist. All of his products are sold on Beautylish. He first started out with kind of like makeup brushes and tools. And within the past year or two, he has branched out into makeup. There are 3 products in this complexion line, starting off with the Luxury Cream Foundation. Once again, all these products are available at Beautylish for purchase. If you haven't purchased from Beautylish before, they have very good customer service, amazing shipping, really good experience overall. You definitely need to check them out. The foundation costs $38. You are getting 1 ounce of product, so that's pretty standard. And I do think the price is I think that's pretty fair, especially for something that is considered a luxury product. I don't think that that is that bad. Now, as the name would suggest, this is a cream foundation. I was really excited to hear this because personally, I like cream foundations. A little bit about my skin type. I do have dry skin, maybe a little bit more normal within the summer. I also do need, a little bit of coverage. You're gonna see in the demo, I do have some hyperpigmentation. I am 31 years old, so I am starting to see some fine lines. And I like cream foundations because they're usually a little bit more emollient, a little bit more moisturizing, and have kind of like a smoothing effect over the skin. And I think that's definitely what you're going to see with this foundation. I took a look into the ingredients. The majority of the ingredients are kind of like a blend of emollients, skin softening ingredients, things that really improve kind of the texture and the smoothness of your skin, mixed with just the pigments, what is basically giving you that color and that coverage. I really appreciate the fact that there aren't that many ingredients in this foundation. I will link a video down below of Wayne kind of introducing this product. You should definitely check it out because he kind of explains his thought process behind this, why he created it and how to apply it. So I'm really kind of going off of a lot of what he said and putting that to the test. But as I mentioned, there's not that many ingredients, and this foundation, it's not promising any like crazy skincare benefits. There's no sunscreen. You're not going to get any flashback. He's just promising us a really lovely foundation, nice coverage. In fact, this is 30% pigments. There's no water. There's no alcohol in this product. So it is very pigmented. Depending on what tools you use, you can control the coverage, which I really like. This is described as having a satin finish, and I think what also is pretty unique about this is that it has a 24-month shelf life, which is pretty long, I think, for a foundation. And one of those reasons is because it doesn't have any water in it. So it is going to last you a little bit longer, which I think is great, especially if you're like me and you have a million foundations and it takes you a long time to get through your products. Now, I haven't forgotten, guys, we do need to talk about the shade range. Unfortunately, there are only 12 shades within this line. Wayne reminds us in his introduction video that all of these products are self-funded. He's been working on this foundation for over a year. This is what he could afford to put out. When you look at the shade range, though, I do think that it's pretty even between light, medium, and dark. I know some folks said that there were too many medium shades, but I think time will tell if those are needed and if those undertones are needed. I think it's really hard just looking at the swatches from Beautylish, but I just want to acknowledge the fact that this shade range isn't that great. I think that as time goes on, Wayne's plan is probably to add more shades. So I just kind of want to acknowledge that Wayne does say that you can buy multiple shades, you can mix them. The shades range from 1 to 12, 1 being the deepest and 12 being the lightest. The shade 12 is very, very light. Like I have shade 10. So that's saying something. This really goes to very pale. And I think the reason he did that is because he knew he could only create 12 shades. And he basically says in his video that you can use that shade or any of the shades along the spectrum to either mix into the other color or to kind of use as a way to brighten up the face, to use as a concealer. So it does have kind of like a makeup artist approach to it where you can take any of these, you can easily mix them, you can use it as contour, brightening, concealer, etc. That being said, I do think that that shade 12 is very, very light. I don't know, just given how pale I am, it's gonna be really pale. So I just wanna point that out. I have shade 10. This is a perfect match for me. And I will list in the description box a couple of other popular foundations and the shades that I wear so that hopefully that will help you kind of gauge where you fall along the Wayne Goss spectrum. Next up, we have the Poreless Beauty Puff, which retails for $10. Now we all know Wayne loves a makeup puff. He loves to load those things up with powder his face. So I feel like this is really on brand for Wayne. I wouldn't say that I typically use something like this to apply my makeup, but I was definitely interested in giving it a shot. On one side, you're gonna see what he calls kind of like a velour side. It kind of feels like a Juicy Couture tracksuit. And he uses this side to sort of set the foundation with the powder. And then what you can do here is you can just kind of flip this little band over and you'll see this side, which I use today, is like the smoother side, and that's what you use to apply the foundation. So this is kind of like an extra $10 accessory, a complement to this complexion line. This is supposed to give you a very smooth effect. We're definitely gonna try this out in the demo. I did half of my face with this puff and half of my face with other tools, so we're gonna really put this to the test as well. The last product, which I did not purchase, is the weightless powder. This retails for $28. The reason that I didn't buy this, guys, is just because I don't use powder. I rarely need to use powder. My skin is very dry. I enjoy kind of a luminous effect, even if it is a very dewy foundation. And if you look at kind of the before and afters on the Beautylish website of this powder, you'll see that the foundation itself, it's described as being satin. It looks satin. It doesn't look like something that I would need to powder. But a little bit about this powder, it is described as being weightless. It looks, at least from what I've seen in the videos, very finely milled. It also has no pigment. It really is designed just to set the skin. It's not meant to add really any coverage. It's supposed to give a poreless effect. It looks like a really good powder. Unfortunately, I did not purchase that for this review, but I will link a couple other creators' videos down below if you guys are interested in checking out how the powder plays out. All right, friends, those are all the product details. Now we're gonna get into a demo and a full day wear test. I'm gonna be doing daylight check-ins and really getting up close and personal to show you guys how this looks on the skin, how it applies with different tools, how it wears, how products lay over it, all those good details. I am not going to be using any primers, any setting sprays, or any powders with this foundation. I really don't think with a luxury foundation, you need to make it work with those types of products. I think that those kinds of products, at least in my philosophy, those are the kinds of things that I like to take a good foundation and take it to a great foundation, or a great foundation and take it to a holy grail foundation, if that makes sense. Those are kind of like boosters for me. I'm just gonna be trying this with no safety nets, all on its own, so let's get into that. Okay, party people, let's get into this demo. I have you up close. We are testing the Luxury Cream Foundation from Wayne Goss, and this is, once again, the shade 10. Hopefully you guys can see that, but you can sort of see when I mix my finger into this product, just how sort of shiny and emollient it is, and I will do a quick little swatch for you there as well. So based off of my wear test yesterday, I'm gonna be doing this side of the face almost kind of like the Wayne Goss method. I'm gonna do all Wayne Goss products. We're gonna be using the puff on this side. I'm gonna be using the Wayne Goss bronzer on this side. We're gonna top everything with Wayne Goss products on this side of the face. We're also going to be using the foundation as concealer on this side of the face. And then on this side of the face, I'm going to be applying the foundation more of like what I would typically do with like a brush or maybe my fingers. I'm going to be using another concealer just so we can tell the difference between how that wears. And then I'm not going to be using the Wayne Goss bronzer. I'm going to be using a cream bronzer. And then we'll probably just kind of even it out with Wayne Goss eyeshadow, etc. And real quick, friends, this is what my skin looks like. If you are new here, I like to film with as much daylight as possible. I'm not having the best skin day. I feel like there's a civil war going on with my face, and this side is clearly losing. So I do have some breakouts, and I have just like some flushing, a little bit of hyperpigmentation. I have a little of rosacea here on my cheeks. I am gonna start off with this side with the Wayne Goss Puff, and we're gonna be using this smooth side for applying the foundation. So let's do that. I have not used the puff yet, so I'm very interested. I'm just kind of putting it in here. I'm very interested to see how this applies. Oh, it's very full coverage. You guys can see right there from the streaks, just kind of how emollient that is. Just kind of doing this for demo purposes. I really didn't go into this pot that much, so it's not that much product. And now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pressing that into the skin. I'm taking a little bit more and I'm going on top of the areas where I have the most hyperpigmentation. You can tell from the ingredients there's definitely a smoothing effect going on here, and you do get kind of a nice satin sheen. I definitely agree that this is a satin formula and it really just glides all over the skin. Shade 10, it's actually kind of a perfect match for my skin tone. So hats off to you guys, because you guys were the ones that told me I should get this shade. Now on this side of the face, we're gonna go in with a brush, and I have two different brushes here. I have this flat, sort of densely packed one from IT Cosmetics. I'll link all of these down below. And then this is the classic base from the Sonia G Fusion series. This is what I used yesterday. And I just wanna show you guys real quick, first with the Sonia G Fusion brush. If you go in with a brush, I don't think that it actually applies that much more than when you use the puff. I think it's pretty similar. I think the biggest difference here is that, see how it can be a little bit streaky? I think that these brushes, it's perfectly fine to use these. I don't think it's overdoing it. I actually don't think that this is that pigmented, so to speak, at least in my experience using it last night, kind of playing around with it. I think the main thing is that if you're gonna use a brush, if you do see some streakiness, what I found to be helpful is actually just kind of melting it in with your fingers. And I felt like that worked very, very well. I think you go in with the puff, because it has that sort of velour texture, it kind of does that work for you because it has all those little microfibers kind of doing that blurring and smoothing for you. But I felt like going in with my fingers was very, very effective. And then what I thought we could do today is kind of go in with this more densely packed IT Cosmetics brush, so you can see when I stamp it on my face how that applies a lot of pigment, but it also helps to really blend that pigment out, and it's not gonna get a bunch of product up in the brush. So these are the two sides of my face. Honestly, I think that it's very similar. I do think that the puff helps. It just does a little bit more work for you. I kind of still find myself wanting to kind of pat this in, absorb a little bit of extra product, smooth it out, especially along my nose. I don't really think that there's a huge difference there. I think you can use your favorite brushes for this. It's just very, very emollient. I don't even think it's that pigmented. You can definitely build it up. Now we're gonna use this baby as a concealer. So I'm gonna go in with this Sonia G Fusion brush. This is the Jumbo Concealer Brush, and I'm just going to dot that in there and go into the darkness that is beneath. And we're gonna see how this works as an eyeshadow base as well. That's the difference between using it as a concealer and not using it as a concealer. Clearly makes a difference. I'm also just gonna put a little bit on my spots up here. See how it's a little bit streaky? I don't know if this would be my favorite foundation for covering up spots, because you do, I don't know, I feel like using your finger is the best. So on this side of the face, I'm gonna be using my Giorgio Armani Power Fabric Concealer. This is one of my favorites as of recent. This is in the shade 3, and I feel like this is just a good standard concealer that I would use with this foundation. I'm gonna put a little bit down here too in my problem spot, just so we can kind of compare how would this look on its own versus how would this look with kind of how I would normally wear it. And I'm just blending that in with this Sephora foundation brush. Here's the difference between using the Wayne Goss foundation as an under eye concealer and using the Giorgio Armani. You can clearly see the Giorgio Armani has more coverage and it's just a little bit more brightening. Now I'm gonna go do the rest of my makeup and I will be right back. All right, friends, I'm back. I finished my makeup. Quick rundown of what we have on my face today. On this side, we have the puff side. On this side, we have the brush side. We're using the foundation as a concealer here. And then on this side, we have the Armani Power Fabric Concealer. And then what I did is I went in with the Wayne Goss bronzer on my face here, and I also used the contour. I'll link all these products down below, by the way. I went in with the powder bronzer. On this side, I went in with the Westman Atelier Face Trace contour stick in Biscuit, and then the Face Trace stick in Truffle as kind of a bronzer. So we have cream products on this side, and then we have the powder bronzer on this side. I then went in with Wayne's Blush and Highlighting Duos in the color Desert Blossom. I have the luxury eyeshadow palette in the shade Pearl on my eyes right here. And then on my lips, I went in with the Natural Berry Lip Pencil, the lipstick from Wayne Goss in Lotus, and then the gloss in Hyacinth. So we have pretty much a full face of Wayne Goss other than the Westman Atelier products that I used on this side of the face. I will link everything that is on my face in the description box down below. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is because yesterday when I was testing this foundation, I went in with his bronzer. And as you guys can see, it looks so beautiful. His bronzer is just so pretty. But what I was noticing here is that it looks extremely luminous on the face wherever you have put that bronzer, but then it looks pretty natural and satin anywhere that you don't have the bronzer. It really is the bronzer that's adding kind of that beautiful, gorgeous luminosity. I wanted to see what it looked like compared to just a regular creamy, maybe not so luminous bronzer. And I definitely think that his Radiance bronzer adds a lot of radiance. On this side with the Westman Atelier, it definitely just looks a little more flat. As you can see, it's kind of, hopefully you can appreciate that in the camera. It looks less radiant, less glowy. That being said, when I used the cream products, I didn't feel like the foundation like lifted or caked up or anything. I think you can use this foundation with cream products. I think you can layer on powder products on top. I don't really think that this foundation like sets down. Remember, there's no alcohol or water to kind of evaporate off of the face to set this. So if you want to set this, you would want to use a powder, whether it's the Wayne Goss powder or another powder in your collection. If you really want this to be kind of locked and loaded, I think you might want a powder. For me, I like this finish. It is satin, but it is not greasy. So I really just wanted to show you guys what this looks like when all of my makeup is on and kind of explain some of the differences there before we go into the wear test. I also want to do a quick comparison with two other foundations that are in my collection that you guys might be asking about. The first one is the KVD Good Apple Balm foundation. Here I have the shade Light 004. Here is the Wayne Goss foundation. See how there's that kind of really nice sheen to the texture? And when you look at the KVD, there's still a little bit of a sheen there, but this is definitely a lot thicker and more matte. Look how thick that is. See how much more just kind of natural and satin that looks, and then how much full coverage that one is. And I'll kind of smooth them out so you can see the differences there. That's the biggest differences between these. If you are looking for something that is a lot more matte and full coverage, you might want to go with this one from KVD, but the Wayne Goss one, I think it's going to be a little bit more friendly, especially for those of us with drier skin or more mature skin. The other foundation that I was interested in comparing is with the Suqqu The Cream Foundation. Because this is called a cream foundation, this is my favorite foundation almost. This and the Pat McGrath, they are like my holy grails. This is very different. It feels less balmy. It feels more creamy. It definitely feels more like a nourishing kind of moisturizer. When I place my finger over this swatch, even when it's blended out, it feels very different from this. This feels really soft and moisturizing. The KVD feels very matte, more of like a powdered finish. And then the Wayne Goss feels a little bit more slippy. Again, it's very emollient. So those are the differences between those three. I know a couple of you guys were curious just as I was, so I wanted to explain what the differences are within those formulations. They are all, I think, very different foundations. Yo, Future Sophia here. After I filmed this, a couple of you guys were asking me on Instagram to compare the Wayne Goss Luxury Cream Foundation to the Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation. And I actually think that they are very different formulas, which is kind of why I didn't include it in the video initially, but I do want to comment on it because I know that's a very popular foundation and it's actually one of my holy grails as well. The Future Skin Foundation has a very unique gel-like texture. I do have a review of that product here on my YouTube, which I will link down below. And I think that the coverage is a little bit lighter. It's not as buildable. The pigment is not as concentrated. I think that the Future Skin Foundation, it has truly very good like skin caring ingredients. It really feels like you're putting skincare on your face. It's very unique. I think it's just a lot more skincare went into that. So if that is something that you're interested in and you have very dry skin and you're looking for a lot of hydration, less coverage, a little bit of like a lighter and dewier look to the skin, that's how I would describe the Future Skin Foundation. Whereas the Wayne Goss, it's definitely more concentrated. It has more of a natural satin, smooth looking finish, not as dewy. Those are the differences between those two. I really think that they are pretty different, but I wanted to pop in here and explain that because some of you guys were very interested in that comparison. So let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, friends, I know that was kind of a long demo, but I really like to go in depth and show you guys how this applies to the face, how it looks, what the differences are. Now we're gonna get into a wear test. I put this foundation on my face around like 8:30 a.m. So I'm gonna keep checking in with you guys throughout the day. We'll see how long we can keep this on our face. We'll see how we can put this foundation to the test. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my first daylight check-in. What's up, friends? This is our first daylight check-in. It is now about 12:30 p.m. So I have been wearing this foundation for a couple of hours now, and I want to show you guys how we are doing. I think that it looks good. I actually think that my face looks really nice. You will see here, see how it's kind of like settling into my smile lines? But I kind of expected that. Even right around here, I've been noticing, and kind of around my nose, it will, I don't want to use the word cake up, but it will, just from the movement from my face, see how that's where my smile extends. It will just get a little bit, tiny bit blotchy, but what's really nice is that I can just take the warmth of my finger and kind of melt it back into my skin. Watch. I can just melt it back in because it is so emollient. I also do notice like a little bit more creasing under here. And once again, I can kind of just wipe that away. So I think that it looks good. I definitely think that the side that has the Wayne Goss Radiance Boosting Bronzer is a little bit more matte and glowy. I love the bronzer. I think it pairs really, really well with this foundation. And then you can kind of tell this side just looks a little bit more natural and skin-like because I used that Westman Atelier Cream Face Trace Stick. So that is the side with his bronzer, and then this is the side with the Westman Atelier. I don't really notice it breaking up much at all. It doesn't stick to my nose super well, but hi, if you're new here, foundations don't like to stick to my nose. I just have a dry nose. I don't know why, guys. But I think that it looks pretty good. I thought this wore very well. I'm gonna check in with you guys at the end of the workday to show you what this looks like. So I'll see you then. Me again. All right, friends. So I've had this foundation on for basically the whole workday. I put it on at about 8 a.m. this morning, and it is now 5 o'clock, and I'm trying to catch the last like good daylight that we have here so I can give you guys another daylight check-in. I actually think that it's wearing pretty good. I'll kind of zoom in here. I still think that the side that has the powder bronzer, I think it looks a little bit more refined and kind of what I typically like, but I also think that the side that had the cream bronzer, it still looks good. I just think that it's not wearing quite as well. I think everything is fading just a little bit. So I do think that this is the kind of foundation that it's good to kind of set it and lock it in with powder products, not because you need to decrease the shine, but more so for longevity, if that makes sense. I really like the finish of this side. Looking into my problem areas, it is looking a little bit dry around here and a little bit around the nose, and I don't see it really sticking to the nose all that well. I do overall feel like it's kind of wearing off, but it's wearing off very, very gracefully. I will say I don't see it like settling into any of those little lines. I also want to mention that on this eye, I used eyeshadow primer, and on this side, I did not. And I don't see a huge difference. Maybe it's because my eyeshadow primer isn't that great. It's just like a Milani one. But I don't think that the side that just had the foundation, I don't see like considerable creasing or anything like that. I think that it looks good. This foundation is not really disturbing my other products, which I think is fantastic. Now, the biggest thing that I want to talk about in this check-in is that while I think the foundation looks good, I kind of like want to take my makeup off right now. Do you guys know what I'm talking about when you've had a really long day and you're wearing makeup and you just have that feeling of, I can't wait to get this makeup off. You know what I mean? Like my skin, I don't enjoy the feeling of it on my face. I can't really explain. Or you know when you go and you take maybe kind of like a longish plane ride and you're wearing foundation and you get off the plane and you're like, I feel kind of like a crusty crab, really just want to wash my face and freshen up. That's kind of how I feel right now, and I haven't had that crazy of a day. I'm just working from home and doing some laundry and such. I haven't even worked out yet this evening, and so that's the only thing is I don't love the way that like it feels on my face. Like I kind of just can't wait to wash it off. So that's something that I'm only going to be able to see if maybe with more testing that improves. That's the biggest thing I want to say. But overall, especially when I kind of pull back, you can see it looks very radiant and kind of bronzy on the Wayne's World, the Wayne method side, and on the Sophia Tess method side. It still looks good. It's just probably doesn't look as good. That's what I have to say for this check-in. I'm gonna try and sum up all of my thoughts and my first impressions of this foundation in my final thoughts. Well, good evening. As you can see, the sun is down. It is now almost 9 o'clock, so I thought, you know what? That's more than 12 hours of having this foundation on my face, so let's dive into my final thoughts. I really don't see a huge difference from the last time we checked in, so I think that that is great. I wanna sum up what I think of this foundation. Again, I've only tried it twice. This is the first kind of full day wear test that I've done, so I'm gonna keep you guys updated as I try this out some more, but I wanna give you my first impressions. Let's start off with a lot of the pros and the things that I like about this foundation. First off, I really appreciate that it's a simple formula. It's very straightforward. It's not promising a million different things. There's no sunscreen, there's no hyaluronic acid or anything else in there that my skin just doesn't really jive with. I feel like for that reason, it's going to work for more people. The fewer ingredients there are, the fewer things there are to kind of irritate your skin. I also really like the finish of this foundation. It truly is satin. It really does have a skin smoothing effect, even as it wears away in certain places. I don't find that it gets crusty or cakey or anything, and for that reason, I think it is going to be really good for those who have dry skin or maybe more mature skin. It doesn't settle into my fine lines or in sort of maybe the thicker creases of my face. As I mentioned, it's really easy to just blend those back in. I think that this is a really good complement to Wayne Goss's line in general, just kind of looking at the other products that he has. I also think that this shade, it is perfect for me, at least for me. If we are shade matches and you're watching this, shade 10 is going to be great for you. So I was really surprised that the shade was so perfect. I also think that the shades are just a little bit more forgiving than he lets off. I think there is a bit of kind of translucency to that formula. It's not as opaque as the KVD Good Apple Balm foundation, as you guys saw earlier in the video. So I do just want to mention that if you're a little bit nervous about the shade match, I think that the shades are a little bit more forgiving than you think. Now let's talk about not the cons, but maybe some of the downsides of this foundation if I'm really trying to be critical and do a review here for you guys. I do personally prefer something that is a little bit more glowy and radiant. That's just what I typically go for in a foundation, but I do think that, like I said before, this complements what he already has in his line. It's the bronzers, it's the blushers and the highlighters and the other things that he has as a part of his overall product offering that are going to give you that glow and that radiance. So I don't think that that is necessarily a downside. It's just something that typically I go for. I do think that you could easily maybe put a glowy primer on, like the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, maybe beneath it, and layer this on top, and you could probably get just as nice of a glowy effect, and you could layer other glowy things on top. I think that this foundation is meant to be easy to work with, very multi-purpose and multifunctional, and once again, that's something that I really like about it. Now, I don't think that this foundation is necessarily the longest lasting. I do kind of see it slowly fading. I don't think this is the kind of foundation that I myself personally would wear to a wedding, a special event. If I'm gonna have a really long day or be out in the sun, I don't think this is what I would wear. I think it's a little bit more of like an everyday foundation for me. As I mentioned, as it wears away, I think what is unique is that it stays really nice and smooth on the skin. So I do want to mention that, but I don't think it's like the longest lasting, even though it's kind of marketed to be a little bit more full coverage. I also personally would not use this as a concealer. Just for me, I need a little bit more coverage on my spots and under my eyes. I don't think it really gives me the opacity that I need, like I get from my other concealers. And also with my concealers, I enjoy a little bit of light reflecting particles to kind of diminish these dark circles under the eyes. So personally, I wouldn't use this as a concealer. I don't really like the texture of it, but I do think it would be good if you're trying to use it as maybe a contour or add some highlights and some brightness to the face. I think it's good for that. But I don't think, at least for me, it's gonna be my go-to with concealing because it just doesn't have the longevity and the opacity that I'm looking for. As I mentioned in my last check-in as well, I don't really like the way that it feels on my face at the end of the day. I really think that I need to try it more to kind of see if that's something that is very typical. I think I can also try this with different moisturizers underneath. I tried the Creme de la Mer, which is a really thick moisturizer. So I'm curious to see how this feels as I test it out more. I don't want that to deter you guys, but I do want to mention that because that's kind of the main downside for me. The other, not downside, but just kind of like a major critique that I have is with the shades. Now I'm a little bit torn on this because I think in general, having 12 shades is technically a con. I know that Wayne says that you can kind of mix the colors and you can use this color as brightening and you can like use this for contour and you can mix and all that stuff, and all of that's good. And I see where he's going and I like what he's done with his resources. But at the same time, I don't think that the average consumer is going to want to mix these to get the shade that they want. The average consumer is not a makeup artist. And even more so, I don't think that Wayne's consumer, I don't think that they're going to want to do that. You guys comment down below and let me know what you think. I would love to hear that because I know a lot of you guys, you are Wayne Goss makeup fans, or you're maybe on the verge of wanting to try the brand. I don't really think that his target consumer is that person that's gonna be like mixing up a bunch of foundations. I know that they're a little bit more advanced probably in their makeup application and their makeup know-how, but I think that he's going after that luxury consumer, and I think the luxury consumer wants something that is just very effortless. So I think that he really nailed the formula, but I think in terms of just the color selection and the concept of like mixing the shades and kind of using this to brighten and this to darken, etc., I don't necessarily think that that is super accessible. Also, because the foundation is a solid, I do think it makes it a little bit harder to mix. If you gave me 2 liquid foundations, I could pump that on the back of my hand, mix up a little cocktail and be good to go. Heck, I could like put it all over my face and mix it onto my face. I think it's a little bit harder to do that when you have a solid product. So if I'm being really critical there, that is something that I sort of see as a con. I think it's an interesting business decision. At the same time, I really do empathize and am impressed with what Wayne has done here. I work in tech. I'm a product manager and I work with engineers to build software. And like a big part of my job is basically just figuring out what I can do with the resources that I have and trying to explain how I can't do X, Y, and Z because I don't have those resources. So I fully understand why there's only 12 shades. Wayne Goss is self-funding this. He doesn't have like a big private equity firm spewing funds into his face to produce 40 shades. But I want to know what you guys think and I want to start that conversation. So that's why I mention it. Real quick, let's talk about the puff. I was a little bit annoyed to see a $10 puff at first, but then when I opened it up, you know, it is a really substantial puff. I know that sounds weird. It's a very substantial puff, but it is. And the packaging is nice because it comes in a nice little resealable bag. So if you want to store that in your makeup vanity so it doesn't get any dust or gunk or cat hair or anything on it, I thought that that was really nice and thoughtful. I still think that the puff is a little overpriced for $10. I would have liked to see it maybe for $5 or maybe for $2 extra it would come with the foundation. I do think that it is a lovely complement to the foundation. I think it works really, really well. I don't think that you need it. If you're kind of on the fence about the puff, buy the foundation, see if you like the foundation, and then level it up with the puff once you try out the formula. I feel like I was able to get really good application on both sides using my brushes, my fingers. You could use a damp sponge. So I don't think that you need the puff, but I do enjoy it. I'm gonna try it out some more. I'm probably not gonna use it with any of my other foundations, but I am gonna keep using it with this one from Wayne. So all in all, guys, what do I think of this foundation? I think it is a lovely formula. It's very smoothing. I like it. I think it's good. I wanna keep trying it though, because I've only worn it twice. I really wanna see how does this work with different days, different climates, etc. I really think that it's worth trying, especially if you're somebody that likes that smooth satin effect. definitely worth trying. And I didn't mention this in the beginning of the video, I apologize, but Beautylish does have the Beautylish guarantee. So if you get this and you end up not liking it or it's the wrong shade, Beautylish is gonna make it right. Contact their customer service. They can help you out. If you're not sure what shade to get, I'm sure they can also help you with some shade matches as well. So definitely leverage the wonderful Beautylish customer service. They're not telling me to say this. I just like Beautylish. Leverage them to kind of help you give this a try. But enough about what I think. What do you guys think? Please, let's sound off in the comments down below. I really want to hear about how you guys are getting on with this foundation. If you're comfortable, let us know, what your age is, what your skin type is, what shade you got, and how you're liking this. Are you thinking of getting it? I really would like to hear from you guys because I'm just one person, one skin type, one skin tone, etc. Let's get a little convo started in the comments. If this video is helpful for you, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. And if you are new here, please subscribe and consider joining our community. I will also move to the side and put my Instagram handle right up here. We have so much fun over there in addition to YouTube. Instagram is the best place to kind of connect with me on the daily, see what I'm up to. I let you guys know when all of these new products release, when shades come back in stock, when things go on sale. So definitely head on over to Instagram and connect with me over there. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.